AEW Forbidden Door 2025 is now a thing of the past, so we have to review it. That's what we're going to be doing right now. This show that happened on August 24, 2025 from the O2 in London, England. This was a good show. I enjoyed the show more than I didn't. However, like the way I expressed it to a couple of people who you know, we were talking about it, you know, in various circles and whatnot. I said it's a good show with asterisks. Like there's things about this card and its result anyway that you just cannot look away from. You cannot skirt around. That will take up a bulk of conversation. That will be a part of the discourse moving forward. But and do impact, you know, in a not so positive way, the overall feeling of the show. But it is nonetheless objectively a good show with a lot of good on it. Was it a great show? No, I wouldn't go as far as to say that that Forbidden Door 2025 was great. But you know, once again, look, it's exactly what I talked about. You know, we spent a lot of time complaining, bitching about the build, about, you know, little things happening and not understanding why things were going this way or that, you know, whatever, you know. We spent some time on that, but I said it myself in the preview. I might be getting angry at things that haven't happened yet. I might be just getting upset at things that didn't happen, and plus, you know, AEW shows, a pay-per-view specifically, AEW pay-per-views are just about the safest bet in pro wrestling today. Like there's, bare at its very least, at its core, you'll get a solid, good professional wrestling show, if not better, if not great, if not excellent. That's usually how it goes, and that's what happened. You know, ultimately, that's exactly what occurred. We ended up getting a pay-per-view show that, you know, hit all of the expectations that you can usually have when it comes to AEW. Now, does that mean that this was a perfect show? No, it wasn't. Did I get upset during my preview at things that didn't quite happen yet? Yes, I did, but now they happened, and I was right to be apprehensive. How about let's do it that way? But look, those are the general thoughts. You know, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of things, and you know, if you even remotely listen to me, you know, a little bit, you know, if you know me at all. Basically, you already know the things that annoyed me. You already know what I'm about to slam here. You already know. You know, I might surprise you. Maybe, you know, come out of nowhere and you'll be like, what? You didn't like this? But there's a fair chance, like, you know, how long have we been pals? How long have we been hanging out doing this, right? You probably know by now what I'm not gonna like here. But nonetheless, we're gonna walk through it. We're gonna give this the old proper breakdown, the old proper analysis, the old proper review here, of course. And might as well start by talking about the attendance, right? Announced by AEW, 18,992. That was the total attendance given live, but WrestleTix in the last update was calculating at 17,573 tickets available. Look, this show is a sellout. This show it's a massive success, whichever way you want to look at it. So if AEW is inflating the numbers here, well, first of all, are they even inflated? Right? Does this include the you know, does this include the skyboxes, the luxury lounges and all that? Like, or are they doing something where it's like, well, you know, everything with a heartbeat, you know, kind of like what WWE does? What did Vince say in that one What did Vince say that one time in that one earnings call? He gives that number for entertainment purposes, right? Something to that effect. Is the 18,992 out there for entertainment purposes, or is that close to reality, or is it more what WrestleTix announced, or maybe you know what the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, literally, and whichever way you want to cut this. This show was a complete success for AEW, and no wonder they want to go back to the UK very soon by the end of the year. There's clearly an appetite for All Elite Wrestling in the UK. They show up in droves, and they are not, they might not be paying like WWE prices for tickets, but they are shelling out the cash to go see the shows. This show's been selling out. This show has sold a ton of tickets weeks before we got to this point, like weeks and weeks and weeks. So there's and that's where the tickets are more expensive as you get closer to. Well, maybe if you were getting closer to the event today because the seating was so limited, maybe you weren't privy to really great deals. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Like that's usually the strategy, right? That's usually the strategy with AEW shows, is that since the demand is not that high for them, and I speak from experience because I've been to multiple AEW shows, both pay-per-views and TV tapings. You just wait last minute. You just wait or as close to the last minute as you can, and you'll usually get a tremendous deal. You'll get a tremendous price for a ticket in a really good spot, typically speaking. Of course, the more you buy them in advance, the more expensive they are. That's just how the business goes. But as you get closer, and they just want to put butts in seats, right? So I'm happy for them. I'm happy that this turned out well. I'm pretty sure no one is disappointed with this little tour of the UK. I'm sure the Glasgow show did good numbers for them as well. Mentioned it on the review this week that it was nice to see them like in a packed arena. Sure, the small venues have their charm, and don't get me wrong, I really like the small venues, and I think it is the strategy that works best for AEW at where it is right now, and they're choosing these very these venues that have a lot of personality when you see them on television, so it doesn't look like it's being run at your Pee-wee hockey rink, your local Pee-wee hockey rink. It looks like it's being. It looks like it's in a place that has some cachet. That there's something about the spot. The Aragon Ballroom. The ECW arena is coming up. When they run Hammerstein. And all, etc. So I like the small venues, and I'm sure from a business point of view, it is the smartest thing to do. But you can't deny that seeing AEW in a big arena full, whether it be I can't remember the name of the place, the Hydro, right, in Glasgow, or the O2 here in London, seeing that place packed, with the crane doing doing the huge wide shots of everything, with people packed to the rafters. That's what you want. Like from a perception point of view on television, it looks a lot more big time. So I'm sure this is the stuff that AEW is excited for, because listen, as much as we like the smaller venues, you can rest damn sure, and we've talked about this multiple times, you can rest damn sure that the minute that AEW wants to start or can start running basketball arenas again, they are going to do that. They're going to go for their weekly TV. They're going to go right back to it, like in a blink of an eye. So enjoy the small venue era as much as you can. As soon as AEW starts picking up steam again with the ticket buying public, once that trust has returned. Then we're going to get into that. Why does the public the ticket buying public? Why do they not have trust in AEW shows? I have a couple of theories on that. Maybe we'll talk about it on stream this week. But I do have a few theories about that. And that's not what we're going to be talking about here. That's not why you're here. That's definitely not why I'm here. I don't want to sit around and talk about that all this time. I want to talk about this show that we saw. Just a couple of overarching things that I want to point out. Like, I thought Bryan Danielson was absolutely phenomenal on commentary. He was just great. As the third guy, like the grizzled vet who's done the ins and outs of pro wrestling and understands things. And, he's been in the ring. He's actually done stuff. And plus, it's Bryan Danielson who has a high IQ understanding of pro wrestling and how things go down and the moves and whatnot. He just did a phenomenal job just getting everything over. And the way that he pushed all the stories, it's almost as if he booked this show. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. I'd bring him back anytime. I don't know if this is something that he wants to do. Once he officially hits retirement, if that ever happens, because look, he's retired, but is this something that he wants to do? Would this be part of a plan that he would enjoy? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I'm not Bryan Danielson. I don't talk to him. I don't go hang out at his place. All I know is that he made a Taylor Swift joke today that no one else on commentary, everyone just went dead when he did the joke, but it was a Taylor Swift joke. I can't remember what it is. And I'm like, oh, this is a guy who has a daughter. This is a guy who's got a little girl in his home, and clearly no one else on the not Excalibur, not Tony, no one was like, having a chuckle about it. They're just like, what the hell is he talking about? And the joke is just escaped me. I'm sorry. And another, so that's one thing. Another thing that I think needs to be pointed out on this show, and it's going to be interesting considering how much I'm going to bury one of the finishes here of one of the matches on this show. I thought there were nonetheless so many matches that had such great finishes. Not just good finishes. I mean great finishes. Like the match ends in a way where you're just like, holy shit, that was awesome. And not necessarily in this way, not in a way where you just had like this New Japan Final Stretch special where they've been pulling big moves on each other for like 90 seconds and just in this intense pace. And then all of a sudden one guy just gets the upper hand and wins. Not necessarily in that way. Just finishes that make sense. Finishes that catch you off guard, but yet nonetheless don't seem cheap. Don't come across as easy. Or you're like, primo, just incredible stuff. There's quite a few matches like that. I was surprised at how many times I wrote in my notes. I was like, great match. Great finish. In a couple of circumstances, I wrote great match, but where I was looking down my notes and was like, okay, getting ready for the stream here, and it was the recording, and I was like, hey, this is tremendous stuff. Great finish. There's a lot of those, so I'm excited to get to that. And in fact, you know what? Here's the thing: all these matches with all these really great finishes, right, show that AEW are capable of doing those, are capable of doing it. They have the talent to create these great finishes, right? Which makes it all the more perplexing and weird when you have a match that has a disgustingly bad finish. It just makes it all the more perplexing. And it makes the people who are involved in booking and okaying that stuff seem even more out of touch as to what's happening in the rest of the promotion. And it's not like a Flavor of Ice Cream where you're like, oh, well, we'll have, there's a little bit of everyone here. I don't think an ice cream maker who says, I'll make all the ice cream flavors I want, purposefully makes an ice cream flavor that is not good and that will turn people off, right? Where he'll make an ice cream flavor, he'll make a chocolate ice cream flavor, at least market it as chocolate ice cream, but actually the flavor is, garlic, like burnt garlic. And so you think you're ordering chocolate, but then you get burnt garlic. That's going to turn you off. You're going to be like, this fucking sucks. I'm not coming back to this place again. Because that argument of the different flavors of ice cream, it's like, why is shitty finishes a flavor of ice cream? Why is that something that I should be? Who enjoys that? Who enjoys bad conclusions, especially to great wrestling matches? I'm getting ahead of myself already, but nonetheless, we're gonna get there. But I know you already know what I'm talking about. I know you're like, come on, Warren, continue. No. I've got a format. I'm gonna stick to it. I'm going off. I'm going off script a little bit, not off the rails. I'm going off script because I should be talking about something else here. And we'll get to the finish I'm talking about. But you know what I mean when it like, just to hammer this home really, really good and proper. You have all the flavors of ice cream, but the flavors of ice cream should at least be good. They have to be good. No one ever serves bad flavors of ice cream and then says, well, I have a whole bunch of flavors of ice cream. You can try them all. And even no one makes purposefully bad flavors of ice cream. Why is it that in pro wrestling it's like, well, it's a buffet. That's the other one too. It's all the flavors of ice cream. Why is it in pro wrestling that's the thing? Whereas the flavors of ice cream should be not in regards to the finish or the in regards to the finishes and whatnot. It should be in the styles of matches and the variety of matches that you get. In AEW, historically, has always been very good at that. That's when people talk about the flavors of ice cream, that's what it means to me. Or the buffet, that's what it means to me. Because you'll get like a bloody, hardcore match where people are piercing each other's, cartilage with sharp, pointy objects. And then you'll have a grappling technical masterpiece, and then you'll have a good old-fashioned brawl, and then you'll have a party trios match. Like AEW is really, really good at this kind of diversity of styles of matches, and that to me is what the flavors of ice cream are about. Not the creative, not about these wackadoo ideas that we use to get to the point. Because that can prevent me from enjoying whatever ice cream you are trying to offer here. Anyway, also Martha Hart and Oj Hart were there, putting over the Owen Hart Foundation, which was nice, right? I was like, oh shit, is the Owen starting again? Are we doing a tag team Owen? I was like, what's the announcement? Why is Martha here? No, clearly, like, the one thing that I remember finding curious with this year's Owen is that Martha didn't come. Martha wasn't around for any of it. She didn't kick off the tournament. She didn't come for the finals. She wasn't around for any of it this year. And I thought that was really curious, but probably this moment here for the Forbidden Door where, I guess Tony just used the opportunity and was like, well, we didn't talk about the foundation this year. You weren't here this year to talk about the foundation. Why don't we invite you out to London? You're a great partner and whatnot. You know how Tony is, we have a great partnership with Martha Hart and the Owen Hart Foundation, doing one of those. Like, why don't you come out here? We'll have a great time at Forbidden Door 2025 at the O2. We're going to have a great time, great attendance. And so that's probably what they did. Like, they just, even she said, Martha, she said, I think she said it, right? Invited me out with all our staff and whatnot, which was very nice. And very good. And, let's give it up for Owen, right? Of course, we're always going to give it up for Owen. And that's tremendous. Good for Martha. And Oj was there too. Oj Hart. It's incredible how much she looks like a heart. And like I posted that on Blue Sky, and someone responded to me, well, that's because he is a heart. I was like, yes, I know Sherlock. I'm just like, he look like, it's crazy how much he looks like he looks like a heart. I don't, because you've probably seen, some of your friends or whatnot, and you look at their fathers and mothers and you're like, oh, you don't look all that much alike. Oh, I can see traits, Yeah, I can see, I guess I can see it here in your eyes or whatever. But Oj looks like a heart. He's got the eyes, he's got the nose, he's got the jaw structure. He just, it's like the Von Erichs. Of course they're fucking Von Erichs. Of course they're all related. Of course, they're. It's more than, oh yeah, I can see the resemblance. They fucking look alike. That's what it means. I'm not. Of course, it's like, well, use a heart. Yeah. It's like. Yeah, I don't even think Bruce Hart looks like a heart. Does that make sense? I don't think Bruce Hart necessarily looks like a heart. If that makes any sense. Anyway, all right. Let's get to the show. We're gonna do our usual thing here where we're gonna do reverse order. We're gonna start with the main event and trickle all the way down because I want to use my maximum amount of energy, which I'm feeling right now, for the big things. And as opposed to the smaller events that happen on the show. So we're starting with the lights out steel cage match. I'm shocked that they decided to close this, that they decided to close the show with this. I understand why, with the angle specifically, the post-match angle. I see why they decided to do that, but I was stunned when they were like, in our main event, because again, there has been precedent in AEW on pay-per-views where the lights out matches happen right in the middle of the show. The Adam Cole, Chris Jericho lights out happened right in the middle of the show. So, everyone was saying, of course it's going to be the main event. I said, no, it doesn't have to. And I really thought that, Hangman's first pay-per-view defense was going to main event the show. Turns out it didn't. Maybe it was indeed a good thing that it didn't. I don't know. Look, but the thing is that I can't help but, this is my analytical wrestling brain speaking, as opposed to me saying something definitive. Okay, bear with me here. I can't help but think that this is not a good sign of confidence for Tony Khan, who historically will finish his shows, with a couple of exceptions, but will finish his shows with his world title. And who has said on multiple occasions that it is, that to him, the sanctity, I don't know if he used that word, but the sanctity of the world title, the men's world title. I don't know if they started doing this, so I'm going to try and appropriate that into my verbiage. But the men's world title is, technically speaking, the one that closes out the show. Tony said this a while back, and he's pretty much always stuck to his guns. Yes, there are exceptions that confirm the rule. Now, Hangman coming out of All In, right? Huge event. The people's choice, the Hangman, right? Everyone loves the Hangman. The run that everyone is hoping will be the generational one, the one that everyone is banking on, the one which inevitably is going to have to be Hangman's big run, and I'll get to that in a second. The first title defense on pay-per-view out the gate does not close out the show. Oh, but Warren, it's really the main event was the world title, but the unsanctioned is not sanctioned, so it's not really the main event. No, stop it. I hate the shit. I hate this stuff. That's promotional talk. It's like when they say you've got a triple main event, we've got a double main event. No, you don't. What is the match that goes on last? There you go. That's your main event. CM Punk ended up main eventing at SummerSlam. What did he? Because the last night of the last night of SummerSlam, was he on the last match on the last night of SummerSlam? No, it's not the main event. It is the main event of a show, but it's not the main event of the show of SummerSlam. That, of course, was Cody and John Cena. It's the same thing here. So again, I'm not trying to insinuate. Here's the important part. I'm not trying to insinuate that AEW is throwing Hangman under the bus, okay? Or that they indeed do not have confidence in the Hangman. I'm saying that it's kind of weird. And look, I'm just pointing it out, and hopefully it's a big old nothing burger, but I can't help but think that it's not a great sign that your newly minted, fan favorite world champion is not closing out the first show on his first pay-per-view title defense for a match that has been much better built. That was the cornerstone of this show right up until last Wednesday, which I thought was, just a disastrous piece of booking, or at least of creative, right? Right up until then, this was fantastically built. So I'm not sounding any alarms. I don't want to seem like I'm an alarmist. I just want to point that out. My brain goes to these places when I see this kind of stuff happening. I'm like, interesting. But nonetheless, Darby Allin, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay defeated Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Gabe Kidd, and the Young Bucks. I like this match. I thought it was good. Maybe so. Of course. Look, the Young Bucks came out to the Hanson song. Bop, bop, bop. They came out to the song, which was a lot of us saw that coming. When during the pre-show they ran an angle with the production guy saying, we have to come out to our first song. We have to come out to the right song. You know what song? Our first song. That's the right song. So, already people were thinking, the Bucks have to come out to Mbop, Tony, pay the money. And then it sort of consecrated it. I was like, well, yes, that's what they're doing. So they come out to the song, gets a good chuckle from everyone. And honestly, I think this is the peak. This is it. This is as far I think we should go with the Young Bucks being disrespected stuff. I think this is it. I think it's all downhill from this point on. As far as the joke aspect of it, what I need to see from this angle now is what the end game is because if the end game is the Jacksons returning to their EVP spots, I'm not super into that. I'm not really into that. I don't know what the end game is here. Now I know the Jacksons, they're good sports and they take a lot of pleasure in self-derision, which I think is a sign of intellectual maturity. So, and emotional maturity as well. Mostly emotional maturity, come to think of it. And, but so, I can applaud them for that. But, this joke is going to drag. And I think this is it. I think moving forward, we have to see the Bucks sort of try to figure out how to better their station here. We have to see what the end game is. Because I'm telling you, look, if the end game is them going back to being EVPs, yuck, because all of this will have been for naught. I'm not super into it. Anyway, highlights of this match, as we were mentioning, Claudio Castagnoli gorilla pressing Darby Allin, from the ring right into the cage. And they had the cage, which had that wasn't hugging the ring, like it was around the ringside area, which was good. That was pretty rad. I'm not gonna lie. That was pretty good. The Bucks throughout this match were just so tremendous. Again, like they worked extremely well. And and there was the gummy bear spot, right? Which, you know, again, production team sabotaging the Jacksons, etc. You know, you've all seen the angle at this point. I get it. Like I get it. Okay, I'm not a dummy. I understand. It's, you know, they treat them as if they're you know, tacks or glass or whatever, and you know, they're trying to smash Nick Jackson's face into it, and they're putting them in Matt's mouth as if they're tacks, you know, and all that stuff. And I understand. I understand. PWG party match vibes, you know, like that's essentially it. But I don't think this was an appropriate vibe for this match. I'm not going to lose my mind over it, but I don't think this was an appropriate vibe for the match. You know, I think, you know, when you consider that this was, you know, Tanahashi's last match in the UK, when you consider that this was all but a send-off for Will, who was taking time off. Like it was set up on last week very clearly on Dynamite. And then they have the whole Alex Windsor narrated video. It's like, you know, I'm so proud of you. You're an inspiration. Whatever happens for the future, I'm not afraid. I love you, boo. You know, all that stuff, which was very touching. You're like, okay, Christ, this is something, you know, very, very significant that's happening here. And they're in this match, you know, everyone called it to be unsanctioned because they want to kill each other. And you're bringing out the gummy bears to do PWG party match spots. And I'm like, that doesn't work. Like in this particular circumstance, it doesn't work. It doesn't connect, especially when you consider that a little later on in the same match, we're taping Darby Allin to a chair so that Jon Moxley can grab a fork and pierce his cartilage, his earlobe, his ear cartilage, just drive it right through, like some literal gore happening live on TV. Do you see what I mean? And this isn't a thing where it's like, well, I mean, it just went from 0 to 100. So no. No, because the fork spot was actually in the vibe of the match, in the expectation of the match. It added that level of gruesome, of violence that AEW does really, really, really well. You know, they always have like this one particularly, you know, insane spot. So, you know, when you look back at the match and like the gummy bears, you're like, this is nonsense. This doesn't mean jack. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Yes, they got it out of the way early so that the rest of the thing could just be violent on top of violent, you know. But at some point when they're doing the gummy bears and you have Jon Moxley come in and Jon Moxley's doing one of these, like he goes up to the Jacksons and he's got his two hands open, he's pointing at the ground and he's shouting at them and he's like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, Jon Moxley is me right now. That is exactly me. If I were in his spot, I'd be, you know, screaming at the Jacksons to explain, what is this? You know, Kenny was into it too, and Will did the drop toe hold, wasn't it? Will, I think it was Will. Tanahashi did the face crusher into the, you know, they're all, you know who didn't get involved? The Death Riders and Gabe Kidd. Because that's not their speed. They were all outside of the ring. They probably said, look, when they were coming up with the match, they're like, look, you motherfuckers can do what you can do your little ha-ha spot. We're going to be over here. We're not getting involved in this shit. And they tell me the Death Riders were there to destroy AEW. Jesus Christ, if anything, the Death Riders are trying their best to keep this place sane. But you know what I mean? Like, anyway, I don't want to, I think I've already talked enough about it, but I have a lot of disdain for that spot. for multiple reasons, but mostly because I think it's tone deaf. I think this was not the match for this kind of stuff. You want to do that for one of the jokey, PWG 8-mans that you can do an all-star 8-man tag team match, on a Dynamite one Wednesday. You want to do that? That's fine, because you're just doing spots and doing all sorts of shit just to get the crowd hype, and it's a good time. So I'm okay with that. But when it comes to this circumstance here, it didn't work. Anyway, I said enough about it. Talked about the fork spot, and look, the fork spot. We're talking about the fork spot, which of course, memorable, right? Like that's the kind that's the kind of shit that's gonna stick with you. Like Hangman stabbing Mox in the skull. And like that's the kind of shit it's gonna burn into your brain. But you get to it's like when you get to the when you look at when we're talking about the fork spot and whatnot, one thing that we're not talking enough about is Claudio Castagnoli then picking Darby up, still tied up in the chair, taped to the chair, and like back suplexing him or body slamming him. I don't remember exactly. Just like lifting him womp on the chair. I'm like, fuck me. Darby just likes being thrown around. That's just his thing, I guess. And speaking of Darby, well, he flew off the top of the cage through a table structure with Gabe Kidd. Will did a moonsault off of the table as well. Good, violent, great stuff. All sorts of cool stuff. Tanahashi really didn't work all that much, and that's what you expected. And it's kind of what I figured. He'd lay around and let the others do the most of the work, and that was fine. I don't even know what Kota Ibushi did that was all that special, quite frankly. Then Kenny and Will hit a combination Hidden Blade, One-Winged Angel on Matt Jackson, and they gave the finish to Tana with the High Fly Flow. So there you go, finishes on a nice note with Tanahashi's last match in the UK, finishing with him picking up the pin for his team. Now, I guess Kenny Omega disappears for a few months again. I don't know. It's going to be a weird. It's going to be a weird one. We'll get to. It's going to be a weird one because listen, okay, we're going to talk about Will Ospreay here for a second, because the whole story here, of course, is Will Ospreay is allegedly, from everything that we've heard and what's being picked up on TV and from reports. His neck is complete. He's got, he's super banged up with his neck, and it is ready for he's ready to go under the knife, and it's going to be surgery time. And that means he's going to be out for a long time. It's not like it's not like getting your nose cartilage fixed or whatever the fuck. It's your neck. So he's going to be out for a while. And he's been, like we mentioned, he's been softening the blow, started on Dynamite, saying, laying down the I wouldn't say facts. He wasn't saying necessarily facts, but he was definitely setting the table that he was going to go under the knife. And, like I mentioned, they did the whole video with Alex Windsor. But it seemed like it felt at some point like she was eulogizing him. And I'm like, wait, is he dying? Is he done? Is he not telling, does he have terminal cancer and he's not telling anyone? So they say, he's going to be gone for a long time, right? And then they do the angle after this that to write Will off of TV. And I thought Jon Moxley did such a sensational job at making this post-match attack as they isolated Will alone in the ring and locked the door to keep the baby faces out. Mox did such a good job making it look like he killed Will Ospreay, with his Death Rider move, like the double underhook gimmick, the Dirty Deeds, over and over and over, and then Pillmanizing him one more time for the hell of it. Like, It looked tremendous. Jon Moxley, man, it's crazy. The amount of people who started to doubt this man, dare I say, turned their back on this man. When I was here saying, no, the angle's not great, especially when the Death Rider stuff was not great. But I was adamant. I was consistent. You can never doubt Jon Moxley. Don't turn your back on Jon Moxley. Next thing you know, Mox is going to be Mox. And there you go. Look at what happened. Look at what's happened since they got the fucking title off of him. In fact, since they stopped doing this thing where the Death Riders were coming in to destroy AEW and just ended up being a heel faction of assholes. Ever since that moment, this group has been absolutely phenomenal. And Mox has been absolutely phenomenal. He has been on TV every week, I think, pretty much. Might have missed 1 week since losing the title, and he has been excellent in everything he has been doing, and it was the same thing here. I can't believe how many of you, probably some of you listening right now, turned your fucking back on Jon Moxley, the guy who fucking carried this company on his lone shoulders when everything was crumbling around everyone else and the morale was in the hole. And when the top guy decided to disappear because he's paranoid and thought everyone was out to get him. Who stepped up? Who was the guy who stepped up to carry this company on its shoulders, keep it alive, keep it going, keep its heart pumping? I cannot believe you people. How dare you? Because once again, Jon Moxley proves that he is such an indispensable element to this roster, bringing the grittiness, the authenticity, the badassness needed, with flair, with character, with purpose, with conviction. He's not the super worker anymore. He never really was, but he works smart, and everything he does is smart and comes across as great, just like he did destroying Will Ospreay. Awesome shit. But back to the original topic, again in a little sidebar here. Will Ospreay is going to be leaving for a while, that's for sure. Now the question is, whether or not his injury, look, is his injury legit, or is he just does he need time off? Does he need some extended time off because he goes at 1,000 miles an hour, every time, and now his body just needs a rest because now he's doing TV tours and it's not the same as doing, Japanese tours where he'd go for a few weeks, and not necessarily give 100% all throughout the tour when he was in New Japan. Then you give, the big effort for the main show, and then you go away for a couple of weeks, you rehab, you rest up, and then you hit the road again. There's none of that in the American wrestling way of life, right? So maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he just needs to take some time off, and hopefully it's not as serious as we assume, because he'll be gone a long time if he does indeed need the surgery. Now, I'm not doubting the people who are saying that they heard, the people that are reporting that Will need surgery. I'm not doubting that. I'm just, I've got my senses tingling. I've got my antennae up, and there's just a couple of things that don't sit right with me, and kind of reminds me of, the Kazuchika Okada has a hernia situation from 2 years ago or so. For New Japan fans, you remember that when Okada was working at half speed, half effort. We were getting 50% Okada all the time. And then it started trickling out. It was like, well, he has a hernia. In his back? Yes. Well, motherfucker, if he had a hernia in his back, he's not wrestling. If he has a hernia, he's not even walking around. What the fuck? Unless he's juiced up on some, super serum where, like Captain America. and he's got like he's got like these healing powers. Because if he has a hernia, he's staying at home. So we all know it was bullshit. And the next thing you know, once it was time, Okada starts working at 100% again. It's like, oh, well, he was waiting for the big match. So I'm kind of wondering if it's not that type of situation where Will has the, again, not doubting that he's banged up and that he's even hurt, but maybe it's not as severe is what I'm trying to say. And here are my indicators, right? If this is a guy who needs to go out and get under the knife because he's got compressed discs in his neck and he's doing fucking, moonsaults off the top of a steel cage, I'm like, no, this doesn't make sense to me. This is not a guy who is in deep need for surgical intervention. Then again, pro wrestlers are pro wrestlers, and look, they can do things that defy logic and common sense. That's the joy of being a pro wrestler. That's the joy of being a pro wrestler, is that you can do things that just don't make sense. So maybe he is but I saw him wrestle tonight, and I'm like, why is he doing all of this? If he's so much in pain and this is such a critical thing that he has to do, what the fuck is he doing? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And the other thing that doesn't make sense to me is how big this write-off was, okay? They end the show with this. They do the gimmick where the announcers are sending off, right? They're saying, thank you, and you get the little, it's the old NXT gimmick, the old black and gold NXT thing, where you have the little end credit stamp appear. So you're like, oh, the show is done. But no, surprise! It's a twist. It's a twist. There's still more stuff happening. So if you turned off your TV too early, kind of thing, keeps you on your toes. And personally, I liked it. I liked the fact that, because that's when he got the ambush. And they gave it so much time and so much gravitas. They added so much significance to the departure, where I'm like, I cannot help but think, and maybe I'm too wrestling brained here. Maybe I should just be taking everything at face value. Maybe I've been watching wrestling for too long and I am skeptical of everything. Okay. And that's fair. But I'm just seeing this. I'm seeing how bad this write-off was. They are clearly saying that Ospreay's going to come back to get his revenge, right? And somehow this is going to be built around Will for Wembley next year. Because that's what the plan was, right? I hope everyone's aware of this. All in Wembley next year, that was meant to be built around Will. There's no question about it. So maybe whatever Will has is not as severe as they're making it out to be. Maybe this is an Okada hernia situation. Maybe this is a thing where they're just making it sound worse than it is. Just being good old-fashioned workers where you don't have to believe. Whereas, a wrestler is not being a straight shooter with you. Oh, goodness. Really? Yeah, it could. Yeah, actually, that should be your default mode. Okay, I'm not saying all wrestlers are like that, but, they're meant to be professional liars. So maybe they did all of this setup because he gets the final goodbye. Of course, it's in London, fine, but not Tanahashi, right? No one else. They wanted Tanahashi. I think Will wanted Tanahashi to get into the ring with them. But Rick Knox was there. Did you see this? Rick Knox is like, no, get out. Fucking Rick Knox telling Hiroshi Tanahashi to not get in the ring. Eat shit, brother. Anyway. I get it. He's probably getting his instructions. Don't get me wrong. It's fine. It's just, I understand. It's just funny. But do you understand what I mean when it comes to Will? I don't know. I'm not convinced that it's going to be that severe, or maybe it is that severe, but the rehab time isn't as long, or maybe Will is going to come back early because he's a maniac, and I hope he doesn't. I hope he takes whatever time he really does need to heal. It's not just about him. He has his wife. He's got, or wife to be, right? He's got his son, right? It's not just about him. He's got to be okay for both of these people now. And I know wrestlers are weird, but I can't help but think like Will comes back after months of absence where he's nursing this injury, and people they explode with joy when they see him, right? It's like we're getting struck by lightning twice. Will Ospreay is back, and people are so excited. And maybe they can do it in a way which is much more meaningful than how they handled Kenny's return. Because Kenny returned and everyone was excited about it, but now Kenny's gone again. Kenny just disappears now, which leads us to believe that he's still banged up, right? But nonetheless, it's not as if, yay, Kenny's back, but then all of a sudden, no, Kenny's gone again. But I can't help but think that that they still might see a possibility, that there still is a possibility for Will to be for Wembley next year to build around Will Ospreay. Look, it's a great story to tell. The hero comes back after being taken out by the villains, and he's like, I'm coming back. And you can easily justify him going for the title before going back for Mox, right? Where he's like, this injury time made me reflect on life and so on and so forth. I don't know how much time I have to be at this level of my game. So it's now or never. I'm challenging for the world title kind of thing, the men's world title. And then after that, he can decide to go fuck with Moxley, right? Because unless they make Mox champion again? No, I don't think so. I mean, I say I don't think so. But we're having this issue here in AEW that I don't know if everyone is very cognizant about it. But if Ospreay's going away for a few months, well, for a long time actually, and Strickland might be going away too. I feel they kind of worked it so that Strickland can be taken off TV as well. If Omega is still part-timing, look, you are losing some massive stars right now. So this promotion becomes Hangman's promotion. It will no longer be between, the Cowboy, the Feeling, and the franchise, and then Kenny Omega as the star, as a star attraction. Like, if Omega, just think about it, right? Unless suddenly Kenny Omega is back every week and he's back wrestling on TV and he's doing the pay-per-views and he's running a Kenny Omega schedule. If not, then it all becomes a Hangman promotion. This all falls on Hangman's shoulders. And then who have you got for your villains, for your opponents? I think this is why they're continuing the MJF feud, right? Because this isn't finished. It's not done. This feud must continue, trademark. I think this is why they're keeping Moxley strong. Everyone's like, shouldn't the Death Riders be disbanded or whatnot? I don't think we're done with the Death Riders because for exactly the reason I just told you here. We have to keep Moxley strong and relevant and pertinent. And then after that, who? Okada's got a belt. Okada's doing Okada things. I think it'd be great for Okada and Hanger to have a real one this time, But it's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think. Where are we going? Where are we going with all these top people? There's going to be I don't want to say a void because it's not as if this is not a New Japan situation where there's like absolutely no one that can step in to take the top spots. But there's easily going to be 2, maybe 3 tippy top guys of this promotion that are evaporating, and we don't know when they'll be back. This will be for months. Like I said, It's the Hangman's promotion. He's got to set things up for himself. He's got to be the guy. And he has to be pushed like the guy. He's got to be treated like the guy. Because there's no one else to turn to if things start going awry. And, I think they're keeping Mox, warm to hot because they know that in case of emergency, they break glass and Mox is there. So it's something to consider nonetheless moving forward, for the top spots of this company. Anyway, holy shit. I've done an hour and we've just talked about one match. Just about an hour, I should say. Good grief, Warren. I like the match. I liked it a lot. I think right now I'm looking at the cage match ratings that have it at 9.14. That's completely overrated though. I don't think it's that good. I think it's a solid 4.25. Matt, very good. Maybe 4.5. I don't know. 4.5 feels a little high, but easily 4.25. It's a solid match. It's a lot of fun. It's brutal. There's lots of and good spots in there. I think I mentioned it, right? I can't even remember what I talked about anymore. Like the Bucks, right? The Bucks had some great stuff in there. So, it's a tremendous match. I wouldn't be, because when you start talking about 9 out of 10s on cage match, that we're in match of the year territory. I wouldn't call that match of the year. I wouldn't even not even close. But that'll go down. It'll stabilize. It's still early. All right, let's move on. AEW World Title match. Hangman Adam Page successfully retained against MJF. So this match started off real good, and they're fighting on the floor a lot at first and throughout the match. Max is stalling and all that, and it makes sense because you would assume that Max wants to keep it on the floor as much as possible because he has an opening to win the title, right? Because there's these stipulations where Hangman can lose the title on a disqualification and on a count out. So there's some good psychology in that regard throughout the better part of the match, and there's some really good stuff. I thought this match was tremendous. Yes, past tense was. I thought this match was tremendous. It was really building to something great. I was into it, and I was about to get ready to come chastise you all and wag my finger and say, see, I keep telling you about MJF. Y'all want to pretend that he's bad, but in reality, he's got terrible ideas anyway. Oh, it's so disappointing. But it's disappointing. It's disappointing because it was a really fucking good match. Like, I don't know who amongst the I don't know who doesn't consider either of these guys to be like top level workers. Both of these guys have incredible matches. They are not capable of having poorly worked matches, and they were putting a lot of soul, a lot of feeling into the match, and they're doing some great spots. They do a dead eye off the apron through a table, which I popped out of my seat. I was like, holy shit, it's like just great stuff, right? And then they do that, and then MJF tombstones Hangman through a broken part of the table, and that looks even gnarlier because the broken table thing is at an angle, so it's not cracking anymore. It's not falling apart anymore. So it looks like even harsher. I thought it was great, and there's some great moments in it. And then the nonsense kicks in, and then Max, starts doing bullshit with the ring and Page and whatnot, and then there's a ref bump, okay, and then Bryce counts the 3. I don't remember what Max does, low blow or whatever the fuck. I don't remember. And then Bryce, as he's half agonizing, he turns around and starts counting 1, 2, 3, even though Hangman's leg is on the ropes. So, but Bryce counts to 3, and then he kind of passes out. He doesn't do anything else. He doesn't turn to the timekeeper to call for the bell. And Max is like, yes, I did it. And everyone's sort of like, what the fuck is this? Okay. And I'm wondering, well, what the hell is going on, right? What is going on? Max thinks he won, but it turns out the match wasn't over because the timekeeper didn't ring the bell. Now, I want to ask you this, friends, well-wishers, chums, pals, acquaintances. When has this ever happened in the rules of professional wrestling canon, right? When has this ever happened that you have seen this situation where the referee counts the 3, but the match doesn't end and there's no decision? When has this ever happened? Oh, Warren, back in 1997 in, this promotion out of Portland called ZPW. Okay, sure. But this is not there's a lot of things that we instinctively know in regards to the rules of pro wrestling, because ultimately the rules of pro wrestling are really simple, right? You're on the floor, you get counted out to 10, you lose the match, kind of thing. And everyone understands that, and that's why, the counting to 9 gets dramatic and people get in, when they get in at 9 and people cheer. We have these basic reflexes. Matches always end with a referee counting the 3 count, and then you get the bell and whatnot, right? But we didn't get the music or nothing indicating that the match was not over, and that doesn't make sense. This didn't make sense. No one understood it. Everyone was confused in the building because this is not something that occurs in pro wrestling canon. We're not used to this. We have never heard the rule, or at least the rule isn't as implicit as many other rules in pro wrestling, such as, being thrown over the top rope and a Royal Rumble will eliminate you. The implicit rule is ref counts to 3. We have a winner, match is over. Since when do we need the timekeeper to confirm? What the fuck is this? It doesn't happen. And then, so then we have that kind of situation, which is really, really weird, right? And Hangman stays there, flat on his back, with his foot on the rope. He doesn't move. Because I think he took a low blow in the heat seeker, right? Or something to that effect, right? So he's knocked out. He's selling the finish. And then Mark Briscoe's music hits. Mark Briscoe starts dashing to the ring. But then security comes out to prevent him from getting to the ring, right? Now, at first I'm like, Mark Briscoe is bringing out another referee. This is legitimately what I was thinking. Oh, Mark Briscoe has another referee with him. That'll come, make sure that all of this is kosher and that, he gets into the ring and he's like, no, the match isn't over. Or yes, declare the match is finished. Whatever the fuck. But no, Briscoe just comes out. He just comes out. And I understand what they're doing here as well. They're doing a callback to the match that MJF had on Dynamite about a couple of weeks ago against Mark Briscoe, where he beat Briscoe and Bryce did not see the foot on the rope. So Max, tossed the foot off the rope so that Bryce wouldn't reverse his decision, which is insane to begin with. It's like we're avoiding dusty finishes right and left, It was, it already there, the psychology was a little off. I'm like, all right, I guess because Bryce does come off as a dummy, That's kind of his referee persona. He's a bit of a dummy, like Rick Knox. Rick Knox can't control shit. Rick Knox is, he's there. He's just there to count to 3. He has no control on these matches, whatever. But anyway, back to Briscoe. So Briscoe probably sees this and he sees Max is going to do this again. That's clearly what's happening here, right? But then why is there security to come and keep him from interfering when people interfere all the time in this company? without anyone coming in from security to keep them from hitting the ring. Why is it right here? This is the kind of stuff that really annoys me with pro wrestling, where it's like, why is it in this particular circumstance? Why is it that security is going to keep this wrestler from hitting the ring, right? Why is it going to be this wrestler and not, why did no one stop Mina Shirakawa earlier in the evening, right? Why did no one do that? These are the kind of things that, it's the kind of logical fallacies that look, you sort of expect, right? It's canon. Someone's running to is running in to interfere in a match. Well, he's going to run in. They're going to run in. They're going to hit the ring. They're going to do their interference, and that'll be that, right? Why is it then that in this circumstance here, security was employed to keep Briscoe from going forward? I don't understand. And phony baloney security, and then real security, like the real security guys. And those, you'll notice, they always get the upper hand. Like, you don't fuck with the real security guys, because you don't want the real security guys to come off as chumps on TV, so that when you run into them at the venue and you're doing, fuckery at ringside, you're afraid of these dudes. You don't want them to come across as geeks, so that some drunk guy in the front row suddenly decides to be a hero or whatever the fuck, and start taunting these guys because he sees them as jerks or goons, geeks. Anyway, Mark Briscoe gets carried away, okay? And then Max turns around and sees the leg. And then he goes to take Hangman's leg off. Then suddenly, like by magic, not magic, like probably via some psychic connection with the universe, Bryce Remsburg hops right up to his feet like he's the fucking Undertaker, okay? And he keeps Max from taking the foot off the rope. And then he says, no, look, the rope was up. It's not a 3, we're continuing. And I am livid. I am out of my mind livid. What is all of this fucking bullshit? What is this proving? What is this doing? All this has done is ruin a great match, something that had the potential to really be a memorable match on this card. A signature first big win for Hangman Adam Page, who, as I might remind you, is going to be the guy, while all of the other top guys are gone because of injuries. It's all reliant on him now as a babyface, top babyface guy. And we're going to do this. Instead of giving Hangman a crisp, clean, clear win over the dastardly MJF, who can try, don't get me wrong, you want MJF to try the dastardly things. But why would you do this? Why would this match end then with Hangman using the metal clipboard to get the upper hand on Max? Why would we? Am I the only one who sees this as probably the worst outcome? Maybe not the worst, but one of the worst outcomes for a first pay-per-view defense of this popular world champion that for the past few weeks, all outside of last Wednesday, it seems like last Wednesday, all of this took a turn. Because ever since he won his title, he's been assertive. He's been assertive, knows what he wants. He's been confident, doesn't take any shit from anyone, didn't take any shit from Mox, didn't take any shit from MJF. You're like, fantastic. This is no longer an anxious millennial cowboy. This is the leader of this promotion. Fantastic. And then all of a sudden all of this, why couldn't we have had a clean fucking finish? I absolutely hated this. And yes, Yes, this has MJF's fingerprints all over it. I agree with everyone. This is an MJF special. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was up to. And this is what, and people are going to run around and they're going to scream and shout about MJF, how we have to, someone needs to stop him, whatever expressions you want to use. But I want to go further than that. I want to go on top of that. Because Max can have all these ideas as much as he wants. Look, this is how his brain works. We have a good understanding of how his brain works. And by the way, MJF is better than this. MJF is legitimately better than this, and I still believe that. And there are people who have given up on him. There are people who have absolutely thrown him away and said, he is not better than this. Look, this is what he is. But I legitimately believe that he is able to do better than this because he has. And we've seen it. He doesn't have to fall back onto all of these, convoluted angles and whatever the hell this finish. He does. These are all choices that he makes. They're bad. And I don't know why he falls back onto them when he is so good at doing other things. And you know what should keep him in check? His boss. And we need to start pointing some fingers at his boss. We got to stop blaming MJF like he has creative control over everything that happens in his programs. Yes, he has a lot of creative input. Yes. He gets to do a lot what he wants to do. Right? This is one of the reasons that I often point to when people say, oh, MJF should just go to WWE. Max knows that if he goes to World Wrestling Entertainment, he is giving up all of this input that he provides for his programs in AEW. He is handing that over to a team of schmucks that are going to do whatever they want with him, and he's going to sit there and smile and eat it by the spoonful. But his boss right now, despite the fact that that Tony really likes Max and that they get along well, Tony has to edit down these ideas. It was so overbooked. It was so overbooked, just from a pure sense. There was so much there were so many unnecessary steps to get to this point that weren't even necessary in the first place. Because trust me, if I had been the booker, if I had been Tony Khan in this spot, I would have said, Max, we're having our world champion beat you as clean as possible on the first night he's out on pay-per-view. Especially since y'all are not even main eventing the show. We're at least going to do this way. Is that good? But no, Max gets away with this stuff. And ultimately, the man responsible for this popping on your television and being part of storyline canon here in AEW is Tony Khan. Nothing goes on AEW TV that hasn't been signed, sealed, and approved by Tony Khan. So he's okaying all of this. So it's time for Tony to take his fair share of the blame here. And if he's got a guy on his team whose creative is, creating really bad situations during the pay-per-views and dampening results and expectations, maybe it's time for the boss to say, hey, listen, let's not do everything here. Let's try to edit this down to something simpler. An Occam's razor type of situation, which I think is how every booking situation should be looked at, perceived. Occam's razor, every single time. I'm not trying to take responsibility away from Max. These are his ideas. And Hangman too, to a degree, in this situation. He's agreeing to this. It's just, I refuse to dump all of this on one guy when everyone is sitting around going, great idea. And the boss is rubber stamping this. And this is what scares me. As I've been talking for, a couple of weeks on the Dynamite review, talking about this a little bit. This is what scares me as we're getting into the fall season with Tony Khan, as he told us before, as Tony Khan removes himself a little more from his AEW duties because of football, the NFL, only to return once the season is over. Last fall, booking in AEW, wasn't handled with great care, even to a point where, it was weird, and at some point was kind of not good. And then when Tony Khan came back, everything started feeling better, like everything was booked with care. So I'm a little worried. That we're getting back into this type of situation because the NFL is starting up soon, because Ospreay and Swerve and Omega potentially are not going to be around as much. And Hangman is going to be, the only top really babyface around. And Max is going to continue this program. Like, I don't think I would have had as much of an issue with this match if it had closed off like a name Dynamite, right? A Dynamite with a name, like Winter's Coming or Fighter Fest or, one of those. Spring Breakout. Why? That it wouldn't have bothered me as much, because then I'm like, okay, well, this will help advance a story. This is a pay-per-view. It's different. It's meant to be different. It's booked as different. Hangman should have had a decisive, clean win. Why are we starting off with such not wishy-washy, but why are we so indecisive as to whether or not the Hangman should be booked strong? I think it would be really interesting for a good old-fashioned heel struggle here. And I think Max would be perfect at it. I really hated how this all turned out. I really hated it. And now, as long as MJF is involved in these main event programs, my guards are up. My guard is 100% up. Where it's like, I'm going to keep myself from enjoying and getting into a match, because not unlike prime bloodline era in WWE, at some point you're just waiting for Jey Uso to show up. You're waiting for, Jimmy Uso to show up. You're waiting for Solo Sikoa. You're Sami Zayn. You're just waiting for the interference, because there's no point in getting excited for the match. It's all going to be thrown out the window with all the junk that's going to happen. Ergo, I don't even know how to rate this match, quite frankly, because it was really good. 3 3/4, because I can't take away the majority of what happened in this match. It was so fucking good, but the finish, like the entire spot from the moment we start getting the Dynamite Diamond Ring and all the way to the very end, it just took me out. And I even think it was nonsense, and I even think that it did Hangman dirty. Most importantly, you're supposed to be building this guy as your fan favorite world champion. You want him to be a success. You were doing so well with him, and within the space of a fucking week, from last Wednesday to Sunday, in that expanse right there, you've changed my perception on how Hangman is, or how he will be booked. If you haven't listened to my review, I'll tell you. MJF being there, setting him on, threatening to set Mark Briscoe on fire. Hangman should have said, go right ahead. I dare you. But you're not going to do it because you're a gutless coward, which has been the theme of everything. Hangman knows no one is going to kill someone over a pro wrestling belt. And he's been saying, you're not going to do anything, Max, because you are a gutless coward. So call his bluff. And if he had called his bluff and forgot, and we had never minded all of these fucking stipulations, it would have made Adam Page look stronger, which would have been perfectly fine coming into this match. Made Max realize that he's got to change his ways. he just can't be cheating and doing nonsense because it's not going to work with this guy. So we get some character evolution for MJF. That's what I was expecting. I'm expecting a strong, confident Hangman, not one who says, oh my gosh, he's really going to kill this man for a title shot. Call his bluff. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And that would have been a fucking great twist. And everyone would have been into it. Everyone would have been like, holy shit, what a great twist on this. And it would have made sense with everything that they've been establishing Hangman to be since the win at All In. That's not it. None of it makes sense to me at this point. And I'm annoyed. I'm pissed off. I hate the finish. And it really, really ruined the match for me. It really did. Anyway, let's move on. AEW Women's World title match then saw Timeless Toni Storm retain her title by defeating Athena in a match that had a great finish. See, this one had a great finish. It really did. You know, you have Athena coming off the top rope for the O-face, and then Toni just catches her in the chicken wing, the TCM chicken wing, right? She just catches her, she snatches her, and that's it. Like, she's not getting out of there, and it's locked in nice and proper, and Athena taps. Phenomenal stuff. I think it's tremendous stuff. Despite the fact that I like this match, but not as much as I hoped I would, or I expected to. I thought it was a solid, well-worked match there, but I was waiting for the second gear throughout. I don't know. It just didn't land. It didn't work. Billy Starks was interfering in the match, and it took a while before they got Mina Shirakawa to come in and take her away. And this was rather late in the match. But she wasn't bothersome in the match, to be perfectly frank. And Athena's good. Athena's really good. She does this spinning move into like a Koji clutch type of thing during the match, where I thought I went, wow, okay, like it rules. But and I like the story of the match, where Athena is dominating. Like, Toni is eating so much shit in this match. And Athena, she's very cocky, she's very arrogant. She's emoting a lot to the audience. She's not focused. And Bryan Danielson, again, in one of his very, very good interjections and commentary, he said it himself. He's like, she's not focused on the match. She's not focused on the match. I'm like, she's gonna let it slip through her fingers, and ultimately, it's her own hubris that took the match away from her. Which I got into, but yeah, it lacked juice, man. I was just like, I was waiting for something and there's nothing wrong with the work. I thought Athena worked super, super strong. She was impeccable. Toni was really good, and it didn't connect. It didn't connect. I didn't see it. I'm like, I don't know, like, it's a 3.25 star match for me, which isn't bad. It's still a good match. Like I said, I liked it, but I wished for something else. I was really looking forward to the next gear, because again, like I said on the preview, this match was excellently built and was the feud. This was the best built feud of the entire card. So I was super into it. I know some people were thinking Athena might be able to do this. I mean, Athena's not winning. They are not taking the belt out of Toni Storm right now, who is one of the most popular acts in the company. She is one of the faces of the company. They're not doing this now. They're booking strong. They're booking strong women's champions right now in this company. I don't know if you noticed. And Athena, look, you want a bit of a hard truth? Here's a hard truth about Athena. If AEW thought Athena was indispensable for their women's roster, that she was this, tentpole this tentpole player that they could have there for the women's division. She'd be gone from Ring of Honor a long time ago. They're not, Athena is not, yes, like her kayfabe accomplishments are something else, but they're kayfabe accomplishments, 1,000-day champion. Okay. You know what this ends up telling me is that she's too good for Ring of Honor, but not good enough for AEW. This is what it ends up telling me. It's like, well, all right, back to Ring of Honor you go then, Athena, to continue your 1,000-day reign beating schlubs. Because then when it's time to go fight, the top women of the big promotion, you come up short. You can't do it. And I like Athena. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm talking about perception right now. I'm not trying to bury Athena because I like Athena, and I think I would like to have her more on main roster. Look at me go. On on AEW. I think she did a fantastic job building this match. And if we get more of that, that's great. Because it's not as if she's tearing the house down, and creating new business in Ring of Honor with this 1,000-day reign or whatever. It's not as if, Honor Club subs are through the roof for this. It's the 7 people who watch Ring of Honor who keep praising her and going on and, how great she is, when in reality you're like, is she? Because no one watches the show. No one watches Ring of Honor. So again, I don't want to give the impression that I'm like, I don't want her anywhere, that I'm burying her under the earth, because that's not it. I want her to have success, and I think she should be on AEW. But what I'm saying is, from a perception point of view, what this tells me is that AEW, Tony Khan, doesn't see her as an important piece of the jigsaw puzzle when it comes to the AEW women's division. He's content with the people that are in place now. And let's be honest, the women's division, especially half of the women's division, is so incredibly deep. Especially with Jamie Hayter now being back. Come on. Like it's all a question of spots. Sometimes I talk about spots. Now people, they angle for their spots and they don't want to, they don't want to lose them and whatnot. Well, there you go. What is Athena's spot? If Athena comes up, whose spot is she taking? Is she taking Queen Aminata's spot? Is she taking Sky Blue's spot? Or is she taking Chris Statlander's or Willow's? Whose spot is she taking? Because she's going to take a spot. That's what, every time someone comes in to a new company, they take a spot. So whose spot is she taking? There are no vacant spots. There are only spots to take. I'm not like saying, there could be room for all women. That's not what I'm saying. Yes, if they wanted to book more women on AEW, they could. I'm not saying that she would not have a spot on television. What I'm saying is, whose spot on the hierarchy in the totem pole, whose spot is she taking on that level? That's what I'm talking about. Not whether or not she'll be booked on TV or not, or that someone will be bumped off television, but someone will be bumped off of the spot that they have in the hierarchy of the women's division. That's just how it goes. Like, I'm sorry to say, like Mike Bailey comes in, Kevin Knight comes in, and I'm just saying this like that. These two guys come in. How come we don't see Top Flight on Dynamite anymore? I'm not saying specifically they took their spots, and you can argue, well, Warren, it wasn't much to begin with, but they were on TV quite a bit. And yes, I know they're doing Collision, but they're not. My point is Dynamite. My point is on that part of they're, in the roster, in the hierarchy, the bigger stars are on Dynamite. That's all I'm saying. Because yes, Top Flight are on Collision doing the Sky Team thing with Scorpio Sky. I understand. But the truly big stars, they're hanging out on Dynamite, right? So you can see right there, as far as the hierarchy goes. Anyway, went a little too deep here for no reason. 3.25 star. It's a bummer. It's a bummer because I was excited for this match. I was looking forward to it. But a great finish. Great finish. Kazuchika Okada defeated Swerve Strickland to retain the AEW Unified title. I think I am the high man on this match. I thought this match was fantastic. I thought it was amazing. And I do believe I am the high man on this. I've seen a lot of people in my circles talk about it. I even see the rating on Cage Match. Yeah, I'm very high on it. I'm like I'm in 4.25, 4.5 star territory. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. I thought both of these guys worked incredibly well together. Swerve was in control for a better part of this match, and Okada was bumping, and Okada had his working boots on. We didn't have 50% effort Okada. This wasn't hernia or Okada here. This was Kazu as I like him. And they're doing, all sorts of great stuff and telling the story. Swerve talked about his torn meniscus earlier this week, right? In an interview, and worked it into the match, and he was doing he was flipped over at some early on in the match. He was flipped over the top rope by Okada, and Swerve landed on his feet, but his legs couldn't carry him because of the injury. So that carried throughout the match, and there was really some great sequences in here, and they were both feeling each other. I thought this was an excellent piece of business. It's a toss up for my match of the night, honestly. I really do believe I'm the high man on it, but they had really great chemistry. The story they told throughout was excellent. Okada was into it, and he was in big match mode. Swerve is tremendous, and he was doing things that all made sense. Sometimes I feel Swerve just does the flashy moves for the sake of being flashy, right? Whereas in this circumstance, I think everything was grounded enough and made sense because it was telling the story of his injury and whatnot. And what a great finish. I cheered for the finish. The finish was awesome. And you know how simple it was? Allow me to remind you, okay? Okada dodges the house call, gets back up, winds up Okada, blam, Rainmaker, he's dead, 1, 2, 3. No, sudden exchange, no exchange of in and outs and, a 30 seconds of close pinfalls or whatnot. It's just like, no, Okada dodged at the best possible time, saw an opportunity, and it wasn't based on the leg. He just grabbed him, wound him up, wham, dead. 1, 2, 3. I was like, that's tremendous. What a great no nonsense, great fucking finish. Just went straight to the point. Top guy wins with his finisher. I couldn't ask for anything better. I was informed that Swerve Strickland, he does the gritty after doing that one move. He does the gritty. And then after the gritty, he did a succession of other dance moves that are not usually associated with the gritty and that he usually doesn't do. And I was told that this was the aura farming dance that he was doing, a bit derisively. And I looked it up, the aura farming dance. And it's just one of these things that I love because I don't understand it. And it's funny as hell because it's so weird. I don't even know how to explain it. You need to check it out for yourself. And now there's people doing tutorials on TikTok and YouTube on how to do the aura farming dance. It's fantastic. And he did that. He sort of did it. He did the whole thing and he sort of hand waved it. So now the aura farming dance has entered the canon of pro wrestling, thanks to Swerve on this one. Anyway, fantastic match. And then after the match, the the Kazuchika Okada guy, he goes after Swerve, beats him up. Our boy Prince Nana runs to the ring because, of course, this was Continental rules, so there were no seconds at ringside. He runs to the ring with a pipe, and it was just tremendous. He was running to the ring with the pipe raised over his head, like a farmer's, like a farmer, trying to chase you out of the barnyard after, having your way with his daughter, kind of thing. It was really funny. And then he being Okada, well, they sort of dispatch Nana, and then Wardlow returns. This is one of the big stories of the show. Wardlow has returned, and he gets into the ring, and he beats him up some more, and clearly he is now aligned with the Don Callis family, and that's tremendous because I love the Don Callis family. I think the Don Callis family is the best unit in professional wrestling today. They are I am enamored with the idea of the manager stable being a thing again. And now he's got numbers. It's more like an army than just a family. It's fantastic regardless. And you even have this, I thought was such a nice touch. They had, the whole family come out, on the ramp to welcome Wardlow into the group. So you had Josh Alexander, you had Hechicero, you had Lance Archer, then Kyle Fletcher comes out, Rocky Romero, like I'm forgetting people, right? But you had all these people come out, and then at the very end, Konosuke Takeshita comes out, but he's like at the very end, like after most everyone else has come out, right? And Takeshita comes up, and he's got this reservation, right? He's not like super sure about this Wardlow guy. Sort of sizes him up and is like, all right, cool. Like, Wardlow was hugging it out with the others, fist bumps and everything. And, it was a little cool. You can tell that, Soup here, he's not really, he's supposed to be the alpha. He doesn't like these big dick swingers coming into his group, right? Like Kazuchika Okada, right? He stood up to Okada before he sort of sized him up. Now he's sizing up Wardlow. And it's the alpha. That's what he should be doing. Look, and I know that at this point that Kazuchika Okada, that Konosuke Takeshita won the G1. I had told everyone who listened to me weeks before, and I told everyone, get ready for a big year for Konosuke Takeshita. Get a big few months at the very least. Some huge stuff happening for him. We're not done. And both on the New Japan and the AEW side, we're not done with Take Soup here. There's a lot more to come. So just keep an eye on all of this. He's resting up. Rumors that he was banged up pretty bad. Potential concussions and whatnot. We haven't had many follow-ups on that, but hope everything gets straightened out and then it's nothing too severe. Concussions are never a joke if that is indeed the case. But, they kept him off the card. I think it was a wise idea. Just grueling tournament gets capped off with a concussion. No, I think it's fine if he takes it easy. So Wardlow's back, and Wardlow's been gone for what, like 7 million years or something like that. And and in all this time he was gone. He's gone for all this time, and we have all this time to think about a repackage, how to represent them, how to reintroduce them, and we still think the top knot is a good idea. I can't endorse it. Brodito, the tag team of Bandito and Brody King, defeated the Hurt Syndicate and FTR to become new AEW World Tag Team Champions in a 3-way match, which was no longer an elimination match, but turned out to be just a plain old 3-way match. All right, so this is another match that unfortunately I think suffered from a little too much nonsense throughout. Quite unfortunately, I think it impaired on the overall flow and really working to get Bandito over. And okay, but look, I thought it was really good. I thought it was a very good 3 3/4 star match. I have no qualms with it. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. I think, again, FTR, I think they're tremendous. I legitimately think that right now they are doing the best work of their entire run in AEW. And yet they're another team that people have decided they are bad. There's AEW fans, sometimes they're going to make up their mind about something. MJF is bad, FTR is bad, the Hurt Syndicate, don't want a job to anyone. They make up their mind on this stuff. And they made up their mind about FTR. So even if FTR, I think, had a match of the year, they'd still figure out, they got lucky or whatever. And I thought everyone worked hard here. I think this was the best match that we've seen from the Hurt Syndicate since they started in AEW. I think this is, without a shadow of a doubt, this is their best match of their AEW run. Everyone worked hard. You got the big pop for when Brody and Bobby Lashley stood face to face to each other. Look, people were up on their feet for it. Look, the people love Brody King. I don't know how much I have to say this. I'm glad he's got. They belted him up. They've given him another title. This is a guy you have to push. You just have to try. You just have to try a push. It doesn't have to be for the world title. You can do it for the TNT title. He would be a great TNT title champion. It'd be just perfect and the audience would get behind that. You kidding me? Everyone fucking loves Brody King. And he's a great worker. He's got a great attitude. From what I understand, a sweetheart backstage. Everyone loves him. Just you got to reward good behavior sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to you just got to do it. And Shelton Benjamin, at some point in the match, he's throwing German suplexes around. There's a lot of good in here. The big belly to belly flip from Bandito. He's got Dax Harwood and he does that to the floor off the top rope. Just, incredible stuff that's going on in this match. And then at some point, right, we've got masked men who attack the Hurt Syndicate. And I'm thinking, oh, they have New Japan tracksuits. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh no. Who have we got from New Japan? And then, you see one of the guys with the ski masks on. You look at his eyes and wait, that's Ricochet. That looks like Ricochet's eyes, and was Ricochet. It turned out it was Ricochet and the GOA, the Gates of Agony, who attacked the Hurt Syndicate, for reasons that are nebulous right now, but I'm sure will be clarified. An angle that made complete sense when you realize that, oh, okay, this is how they're going to set it up so that the Hurt Business don't lose the titles. Because this was supposed to be an elimination match. This was supposed to be an elimination match. Not lose the titles, but not get pinned is what I wanted to say. Because this was an elimination match, folks. It was an elimination match. So that means that even if the Hurt Business didn't want to take a pinfall, they still had to, because they had to be eliminated from the match. Because at some point, Tony put his foot down and said, you're losing the belts. That's inevitable. You're losing the titles. And then somehow this became an elimination match, probably where they thought, well, okay, that'll be a good way. That might be a good way to lose the titles. And I was like, oh, well, if it's an elimination match, then the Hurt Business the Hurt Syndicate have to take a pinfall. Someone there has to take it. So I guess Shelton, whatever. But then we get to the match and it's a good old fashioned 3-way. I'm like, oh, there you go. There you go. And I was like, okay, well, there you go. Bandito is going to take the pin, right? But no. It's actually the FTR guys. It's Dax Harwood who takes the pinfall and the Brodito win. I really didn't like that. Like, they didn't stick the finish. The finish was very unfortunate. On an evening of great finishes, this is one that did not stick, and not because of nonsense or garbage. It's just because of some kind of weird miscommunication, right? Because the Brodito, they do the Brodito flip thing where, you know, Brody King is on his back and he flips Bandito with his feet onto the other guy. And I guess Cash was supposed to, because this was on Dax, and Cash was supposed to run in to break up the pin because the ref stops counting and Bandito sort of rolls off, kinda. He's sort of like, you know, no longer does contact with his chest. So, you know, I think Cash completely blew his spot there, and he was very late. And then just like, and then everything's just like, oh, something fucked up. And then they went right back to that finish. They just went back to, you know, Bandito covering for the win. I'm like, okay, like they didn't even try to do anything else. It was just like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So unfortunately, kind of a, you know, it's unfortunate because this was the right decision, I think, ultimately. But with a bad finish, which is a shame. But it's okay because, you know, here you go. Here's what's exciting about this is that you have, you know, Bandito and Brody King booked together as a tag team. Two singles guys, you know, just coming out of nowhere, who mesh, who have chemistry, who get along well. Like everything just falls together perfectly with these two. And it's an AEW original tag team, right? Just guys that Tony Khan has put together and that got themselves over organically with the crowd, with their look, with their work. You know, two guys that the audience, the AEW fans love the Bandito. They love the Brody King. You put them together. They love this tag team. Look, I was thinking that FTR was going to win because I thought they were going to, you know, because with the feud with Cope and Christian was going to be about the tag teams. Clearly not. So that's exciting. It's exciting that we decided to go down this route, keep them away from FTR, who instead, their match with Cope and Christian is just going to be like a fight. It's just going to be, it's just going to be like a grudge match. It's just going to be, you know, a feud with no other stakes than we don't like you. And that's great. Like I couldn't ask for anything better in that circumstance. I was terrified that the titles were going to be involved in this, and I thought it sucked and whatnot. But they're not, and they're going to have Brodito doing that on the side, and I think it's healthy because you really feel like there's a rehabilitation happening with the AEW tag team division, and this is a good spot to show that off. Circling back to the Hurt Syndicate. Yeah, I think these guys are, there's a lot of smoke to this fire here, right? Of all the rumors that they're trouble to do business with and they're never putting it, you know, they're never putting anyone over and they're difficult to work with. I'm not saying that this is necessarily the truth. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of smoke to this. And I think that the idea of them having to lose here and, you know, and of them having to lose in this circumstance and losing in this way, having to change the stipulation of a match from being an elimination three-way match to a straight up three-way, continues to add more smoke. Now, I'm excited to find out what's really going on backstage. Because listen, if we find out anything about this stipulation being changed, the match type being changed, stipulation, because the Hurt Syndicate weren't happy, now we're going to start having some proof, some identifiable things that you can pin into. Because as it stands right now, there's a lot of dot connecting. I've heard some things, you know, I think there's a lot of smoke to this fire. There's too many things that don't add up, that don't make sense outside of these guys are hard to work with. But congratulations to Brodito. It's a good choice. Then just before this match, Jamie Hayter made her return. We had Tekla and Queen Aminata who fought in a multi-women match earlier in the pre-show. They were still brawling, in the backstage area, and they made their way forward into the venue again. They kept fighting with each other. The two other members of the Triangle of Madness came out to help out Tekla, and that draws out Jamie Hayter, who returned. Big surprise in her home country. Big reaction. Big Jamie Hayter return. Again, talking about how good the top half of this division is. You bring Jamie Hayter back, and there you go. It's just like there's lots of stuff you can do. There's another spot right there. She's tremendous. She's popular. This is good news. It continues to add more and more depth to the women's division. I'm very glad she's back. I'm glad the injury this time around wasn't as serious. But she's got to be really sick of never being on these UK shows because she's injured. I have got to speed this up. We're like edging on 2 hours now. This is going to be like the review is going to be just as long as the show if I keep this going. So we got to try and speed this up as much as possible. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Nigel McGuinness to retain the IWGP World Heavyweight title in a fantastic match. This match rocked and ruled. It's a toss-up between this match and Swerve vs. Okada for me as the match of the night. I thought this was absolutely phenomenal. The best way I can qualify this is calling it pro wrestling for grown-ups. No bells and whistles, no, nonsense and goofiness and, complicated, convoluted story. The story here was two guys who embodied the next generation of the British style of grappling, catch as catch can, British style wrestling. Nigel and Zach finally fighting each other in a ring at this time in their careers. Of course, Zach is at the peak of his powers, and Nigel coming back after an injury where he was told he'd never wrestle again, right? And it's phenomenal to me that the pace here was so great because you've got these grappling moments that where they're twisting each other into knots, and then you'll just have these explosive moments where they're swinging at each other. You've got the big lariats, and when these lariats land, when these strikes land, when these drivers land, whatever big move they're using to take each other's head off, these moves have so much more impact, right? They have so much more oomph when they happen because the rest of the match is all so calculated and just trying to get the upper hand. Like chess, that was the whole thing. When we got that video of before the match of Nigel McGuinness going to play chess with former NXT general manager Johnny Saint, they've got, they're explaining essentially like it's a game of chess and whatnot. And that's exactly what happened with these two guys. And I got to tell you, a lot of people, when Nigel came back, right, and started wrestling again, sure, he's wrestling Danielson and whatnot, and you're like, yeah, and he's rusty and it's okay, but Jesus Christ, this match that he had here, he looked so good. He was so deliberate and smart and awesome in everything he was doing. And I'm like, what if Nigel comes back full time? Is that possible? Is this a thing? Because I don't know exactly how injured he is or not. I'm like, if you were to tell me next week, Tony and Nigel came to an agreement and Nigel's going to be a full-time active member of the AEW roster, I'm like, okay, I'm into it. Whereas maybe a while ago, maybe not all that long ago, a few months ago, I'd probably, after this, man, that ruled. And, I think he has a role he could have a role on this roster, which would be legitimate and awesome. And he might just be fulfilling that prophecy because everyone was expecting Dan Garcia to turn tonight, but he didn't. And they teased it. Oh my fucking God, did they tease it? They dropped all the signs. They dropped all the signs where Garcia's getting involved in the match, right? So you're like, oh, at some point he's going to fuck up the match for Nigel and Nigel's going to be pissed. But Garcia is going to slug him, right? Something like that. After the match, he comes into the ring to celebrate with Nigel, but he takes his jacket off. So he's just in his wife beater. And you're like, here he comes. He lifts his hand in the middle of the ring, points to him. I'm like, where's the lariat? Where's the punch? Where's the sucker punch? It never came. He even came to the ring with a towel. I was like, he's going to throw in the towel at some point when Nigel is not going to be in need of it. And then Nigel's going to be pissed. But they had all these signs. I'm telling you, if this is how, there should be more of this type of storytelling around a match that should happen in AEW as opposed to, what happened later tonight, I should say, as opposed to this part in the card, but as opposed to, with the World Championship match is what I'm trying to say. Because this added just tension and you're like, this is going to happen. And it didn't distract from the match. It didn't take away from the match. It didn't outshine the match. Wrestling spoke for itself. Wrestling for grown-ups is what this was. I fucking loved it. I loved it. And it's also what I mean with it's also what I mean when I talk about the the varieties of pro wrestling that exist in AEW, the different flavors of ice cream. There you go. This is a very different flavor from a lot of other things that they do on the show. This is another type of flavor. It's really great stuff. It was very, very good. And Zack Sabre Jr. just was the better man, in and out of pin attempts, and he was just able to trap old Nigel. But I'm telling you, look, if you were to tell me tomorrow, Nigel McGuinness is coming back full time, I'd be, okay, I'm into it. This was amazing. And he looks phenomenal. And he's wrestling like he never really lost a step. He wrestles for his age. And he's coming across as great. So maybe we're on the cusp of the career revival of Nigel McGuinness, and I don't have an issue with that. I have no issues with that. Mercedes Moné retained the AEW TBS title in the four-way match against Alex Windsor, Persephone, and Bozilla. I don't have many notes here. I enjoyed this match. I think it was messy in points. It was a little slopperoony about it, but I thought the final third of the match was really good and really, really tight. It's like, I think the only thing that deterred me from this match was the over-reliance on doing moves on multiple people. You know what I mean? Like, a sharpshooter on two people. A jackknife pin on two people. A bank statement on two people. And I'm like, because it always looks dumb. Maybe we should ask for a moratorium on that. Because it always looks dumb. And it never looks painful. And the double jackknife pin, I think it was Mercedes that locked it in. She's got it down and the referee is counting 1, 2, and then one of the two from the jackknife kick out and their shoulders are off the mat. But the other one isn't. Like, I don't remember. It was probably Windsor and Persephone, but I don't remember which of the two. And the referee just stopped counting, even though one of the two opponents still had their shoulders to the mat. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, I know this is not the finish, but it's all, it's kind of dumb. I don't know. I wish I wish we could do something else, and just not this. Like these triple team, like these solo moves on two people. When they never look good, it's never good. It's but you know what I'm talking about. It's not like when, let's say, a really big guy or gal grabs someone and then like has someone on their shoulders and then has someone here and then does a sack of shit and a Samoan drop at the same time. That's fine. It's just like, a sharpshooter on two people. Like, okay, how does that hurt anyone? Plus, Alex sort of fucked it up. She sort of tripped over herself doing it. So it didn't work. Anyway, Bozilla, though, was in this. She did exactly what you expected out of Bozilla, and it was fine. Like, I like Bozilla. Again, we have to hammer home that she is far from an unfinished product. She is extremely young in the business, but I am sure that there are people who had never seen her before, who now she's in the crosshairs of a lot of fans. You just have to give her some seasoning, right? You have to give her more seasoning. She was losing her eyelashes. Here's the thing. This is what I was saying. When I was watching with Kristen. It's like, why doesn't this girl, instead of doing her makeup up like like every other female wrestler, why doesn't she lean in more into the the war paint aspect? Why doesn't she go like more down a Matsumoto or a Naja Kong, type of war paint or thing, as opposed to, making her eyes look pretty. She's a pretty girl, don't get me wrong, but I kind of like her to be more menacing, and especially she comes to the ring with the half mask and it's like breathing out CO2 mist, and you're like, okay, all right, you want to be fearsome and terrifying? Well, don't have cat eyes on. It's like, don't do the lashes. Like, come out with some fucking war paint. Look like a fucking beast. It's like, Vader didn't doll himself up. It's like, and Kristen read me a social media post. Like, I don't have it, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but it said something to the effect, because there was some talk over the fact, well, of course, why is it Persephone taking the pin? Why isn't it Bozilla and whatnot? I'm like, all right. And this person said, even Sid lay down for Giant Gonzalez. I'm like, that's a terrible comparison, and it's not I don't think it's the gotcha you think it is. That's not good. That's just not a good comparison. Anyway, it is what it is with this match. I enjoyed it. Maybe 3.5. Like, it was good. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was a little sloppy at first, but they got it together towards the end. Kyle Fletcher retained the TNT title by defeating Hiromu Takahashi. I thought this match was really cool. I thought it was very, very good. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. In fact, very, very good match. I was wondering what kind of Hiromu we were going to get, and we got full effort Hiromu here. I don't know if it's full effort. I didn't want to go too far, but it is absolutely a big time effort from Hiromu here, who has a tendency to mail it in. And I was looking forward to see what kind of Hiromu was going to show up here. And is it a Hiromu that showed up strong here because he knew, AEW was watching? Does he want to be invited more often? Does he want to work more in North America as opposed to Japan? Because, there are rumors going around that Hiromu is, he's feels like he's kind of hit a wall. He wants to be a heavyweight, but New Japan doesn't want to have him translate into the heavyweight division. So why not come over to AEW? There are no weight classes here. And look, I think he did really good. I think this is the first time that he's really enamored himself to the North American viewing audience via AEW. And if you weren't familiar with Hiromu, right? I thought it was a really good match. I don't have many notes on it, but Kyle Fletcher worked like a maniac and Hiromu bumped all over the place as well. This was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. So Kyle continues his, he continues. He's still starting off his reign. Long may it live, because he is tremendous. And then the official first match of the main card, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage defeated Killswitch and Kip Sabian. Are they still called the Matriarchy? I thought they were called the Uncaged. Did I miss something? I didn't hate this as much as I thought I was going to. And I think it's because everyone did good work here. And I think Christian Cage adds a lot. I think he is so good in everything he does. That's the thing, is that he's a guy that in this circumstance, we've talked about it before. His instincts are so good. I trust him so much that I think that this Cage and Cope thing might have some sea legs, even though I personally am completely done with Adam Copeland. Like, you let this guy just go off and do whatever he wants, and he has the worst instincts for pro wrestling in 2025. Whereas Christian Cage, he's still got a solid foundation. He understands. He has more of a finger on the pulse. He understands it more. So if he acts as Adam Copeland's editor, I think it's going to work out fine. Anyway, we got through the Uncaged here in a fine little match. I gave it 3 stars. It's the lowest rating of the night for the main roster. So, for the main card, I should say, main roster. Look at me again. Terrible. I really don't have much to add here. I thought it was interesting. At the end, Cope goes in for the hug, and Christian's like, he shook his hand, but this is going too far. He's like, no, this is a business relationship kind of thing, And they changed the graphic to put asshole instead of, which is great. Just little reinventions like this with Christian, but always staying consistent with his character. And, we cannot undervalue how good he has been for this company. Even when he was doing the Jurassic Express trios thing. Well, he wasn't really in the trio when he was hanging out with Jurassic Express. I think we cannot undervalue the apport of Christian Cage in AEW. He's been phenomenal. And then that's it. And then when it goes to the pre-show, I don't have many notes on the pre-show. I have one. Let's run these down really quickly. We had the Ops taking on the Bullet Club War Dogs trio of Clark Connors, Drilla Maloney, and Robbie X. Of course, the Ops defeated them. Megan Bain and the Triangle of Madness defeated Harley Cameron, Chris Statlander, Queen Aminata, and Willow Nightingale in an 8-women tag match. It was fine. Just good stuff. Gates of Agony and Ricochet defeated Jet Speed and Michael Oku. Michael Oku taking the pin in his own country. And we had an 8-man tag match that opened the show where Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong teamed with El Desperado, who should have been in the fucking cage match. What the fuck are we doing then? And Yuya Uemura. They defeated Action Andretti, Leo Rush, Hechicero, and Josh Alexander. The one note I have here is when Yuya came out, I hope Gato was looking. I was like, there's your guy. Like that, he popped out from behind the curtain with the music and the robes and the haircut and the fucking smile from ear to ear. And I'm like, this guy, like this, there's your star, Gato. There's the dude you're looking for. He's right fucking there. He won the match. He was the star of this thing. He was the guy. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, why hasn't New Japan figured this out? Look at this guy. And he got a great reaction from the crowd too. Yuya's the guy. Fucking Christ, New Japan. Like it's right under your noses. It just happened here on this show. Christ. Anyway, that's the review. Bit of a long one, but a good review nonetheless. This was a good review, quality review, provided once again by WarrenHayes. Hope you all enjoyed it. Forbidden Door 2025. Like I said, look, as you could tell by the review, a good show, but asterisks peppered with matches with great finishes, though. So, yeah, there you go.